after creating our users, we're going to go ahead and create our login endpoint. So the login endpoint is one that's going to allow users to provide their username or email. Actually, we're going to use their email and then provide them with a JWT. So after providing their credentials, they're going to get a JWT, which is going to contain their identity so that they can be able to access the various protected endpoints, as we're going to see later. So the first thing we're going to do is to install a tool called the Flask-JWT-Extended extension. When you go to the website, we look at the various things that this extension can do. It can help us to basically carry out all the JWT authentication. We're going to go ahead and use this tool to be able to generate JWTs, to refresh them, as well as protect our protected endpoints. So what I'm going to do is to first install this. So I'll go to the terminal. I'll stop our server with Ctrl and C. I'll clear it with Ctrl and L. Now I'm going to say pip install Flask. So I'm actually going to say Flask. This is going to be JWT extended. So I'm just going to come and say Flask JWT extended. So this is going to go ahead and install Flask-JWT extended within our virtual environment. Now after installing it, I'll freeze it to our requirements.txt file. So I'll add it to our requirements.txt. And after adding it to our requirements.txt, now the next thing is going to be to set up our API so that we'll be able to use our Flask-JWT extended. So I'll go back to our code and then I'm going to go to our settings.py, to our config.py. So I'll go to our config.py and within our config, I'll look for our config module. And within our config module, I'm going to go ahead and set up our JWT token lifetime. So Flask-JWT extended has different settings that you can access. So I'll just go to the configuration options part. And where we have the configuration options part, we have the JWT token location, which basically states where we're going to place our JWTs if we need to access protected endpoints. Now we can keep them in headers and cookies, but the default is headers. So we're going to look into how to pass these headers when we're accessing our protected endpoints. We're going to also look at our JWT access token expires, which is actually going to be a value specifying how much time it will take for our JWT to expire. So I'm going to copy this setting right here. I'm going to copy our JWT access token expires, and then I'll go to our code, and then what I'll do is to go within our config. So I'm going to set this up. So I'll say JWT access token expires. So this is a time delta. So I'll have to import time delta from datetime. So I'll come to the top of our code and then I've actually imported it here. So all I'll do is to say time delta and then specify the amount of time. So in this case, we're going to set our JWT to expire after 30 minutes. So I'll say minutes is equal to 30. So that after 30 minutes, our JWT access token is actually going to be expired. I'm also going to do the same for our JWT refresh token expire. So I'll just say JWT. So this is actually going to be a refresh token. So this is going to be refresh token expires. Now I'm going to say that's going to be time delta, and then I'll specify the same thing. So this is going to be minutes equals 30. Now after doing this, then I also come and set up our JWT secret. So I'll just come right here and search for that configuration option. So I'll say JWT secret. So this is actually going to be the secret key. I'll copy this. I'm going to come and copy this. I'll paste it within our code. So this is actually going to be our JWT secret. So I'm just going to paste this. This is going to be a secret key. Now I'm going to read this with the couple. So I'm just going to say config. Actually, sorry for that. So this is going to be our config. And right here, I'm going to go ahead and specify this is going to actually be our JWT secret key. So this is the key we're going to use to sign our JWTs. Now I'll come and also configure this in our .env file. So I'll come and add it within our .env. So I'll come right here and say JWT. It's actually going to be JWT secret key. And this is going to be equal to, so I'll also generate a random hexadecimal string. So I'm going to actually come to our terminal and say hyphen. So I'll import secrets. So this is actually going to be import secrets. So I'll come and say secrets dot token hex. So this is actually going to be hex, and then I'll provide the length of 12. So I'll generate this string, which I'm going to just come and copy and then paste within our code. And then that's our JWT secret. So I've used the couple, so I'll close this. So this means that it's going to actually read the value of this JWT secret key from our .env file. Now after doing this, then I'm going to go ahead and basically set up our Flask-JWT-Extended within our application. So what I'm going to do is to come right in our project level init.py file, and within our create app function, I'll have to specify that one JWT extended to work with our API. So I'll come and first import our JWT Manager class. So I'm just going to come and say Flask. So this is going to be from Flask. Press X. Actually, it's going to be from Flask-JWT Extended. I'm going to go ahead and import our JWT Manager. And then after, we're going to go ahead and create an instance of our JWT Manager and attach it to our app. Now, what I'm going to do is to come right here, and what I'll say is JWT is going to be equal to our JWT Manager, and then we're going to add our app. So right after doing this, then the next thing is going to be to carry out our login functionality. So I'll go to our views.py, and let me minimize this. So enlarge this so that you guys can see. So we're going to be working on our endpoint for logging in. So what we expect is a model that's going to help us define the data that we're going to pass to the API when we're logging in. So that's going to be our email and our password. So I'll just come right here at the top of our code where we created our model. So I'll just come and create another model, which we're going to call a login model. And this is going to actually be a model. So I shall say op namespace dot model. And then I'll just come right here and specify that this is actually going to be a model for logging in. Right after doing this, I'm going to come and create a dictionary containing the various fields. So in this case, we're going to have our email. And then this email is going to be, we're going to have fields. Dot. So this is going to be a string. So we shall pass required equals true. So it's going to be required. And then we shall also pass in a description. So I'm going to say that our description is going to be equal to, actually put this at the top so that you guys can see. So this is going to be an, actually going to come, so this is going to be an email. So just going to actually say an email. Right after doing this, I also provide the password. So I'm just going to come and say password is going to be fields. It's going to be fields dot string, and then it's also going to be required. So we shall say required equals true, and then we shall also pass in a description. So I'll say description is going to be equal to password. So right after doing this, I'm going to save, and then we shall decorate our method with the login with that. We shall actually say of namespace dot expect, and we shall expect our login model. So to do that, I'll just come right here, and what I'll do is say at of namespace dot expect, and then in this case, I'm going to say we're going to expect our login model. So the first thing we're going to do is to access our data. So I'll just come right here and say that we're going to get is going to be our request object, and it's going to be in JSON. So shall say get JSON. Now the next thing we're going to do is to actually go ahead and basically log in our user. So what we need to do is to query for if this user exists. So we're going to actually check if the email exists. So we shall say email is going to be equal to what we get from our data that's sent from our request body. So it's going to be data.get, and then we shall specify that this is going to be our email. Now, right after doing that, we are going to query if the user exists with that email. So we're going to say user is going to be equal to, so actually close that. So this is going to be our user. So I'll say user dot query. So we're going to use dot filter by, and then we're going to filter by the email. So we're going to get a user with this specific email. So if the email is equal to the email provided and we want to get a passed object to that specific email. So after getting the user with that email, then we want to check if that user exists. So we're going to say if user is not none. So basically, if the user is not none, that means if the user exists. And then what we also want to check for is if our password matches the hash that's stored within our database. So I'm going to come and say and. So we're going to actually say and. In this case, we're also going to specify whether our password check. So I'll say check password. So the first thing we have to do is to specify the user's password hash. So I'll say it will take in a user's password hash. So I'll just send the user's password hash. So I'll say user.password hash and then the password candidate, the password that we provided in the request. So I'm going to say that our password is going to be our password is going to be equal to data dot get, and in this case we're going to specify that it's going to be our password. So I'll just come right here and provide our password as the password, so which is going to be like that. So if we have our user existing, so I'm just actually going to put this in a parenthesis. So if our user is not none and the password check is passed, then what you need to do is to generate an access token with the identity of that specific user. So you're going to come right here, and what we shall do is to just come and say, so I'm going to actually create our access token. So Flask-JWT-Extended provides us with methods for creating both access tokens as well as refresh tokens. So I'll just come at the top of our code and import those methods. So I'm just going to come right here, and what I'll do is to say from Flask JWT extended. So this is actually going to be JWT extended. We are going to go ahead and import our create access token. So we're going to import create access token and create refresh token. So we're going to import two methods, create access token and refresh token. So we're going to have create access token and create refresh token. Right after importing these methods, I'm going to go ahead and use them. So I'll just come right here, and what I'll do is to basically create our access token. So we're going to have our access token. So I'll say the access token is going to be equal to create access token, then we shall provide an identity. So we want to store a user's identity in this access token. So in this case, what we're going to do is to store the identity as the username of that specific user. So we're going to say identity is going to be equal to user username. Alright, after doing that, we shall do the same thing for our refresh token. So I'm going to say refresh token is going to be equal to create refresh token, and then we shall provide the identity. So I'm going to put this up. So this is going to be identity, and then the identity is also going to be user.username. So what we need here is to be able to basically return this in a response. So we're going to basically return a dictionary containing our access token and our refresh token. So I'll do is to say that our response is going to be a dictionary having a key. So the key is going to be our access token, and this will be our access token. So we're going to just say that it's going to be our access token, and then we're also going to return our refresh token. So I'm going to put this up. So we're going to have this as our refresh token. So right after doing this, then we're going to return this as a response. So we shall say return our response, and then we're going to also return a status code. Okay, meaning that our user has successfully been logged in. So I'm going to save this, and then we're going to try to check this out in Insomnia. So I'll come to my Insomnia right here, and then I'll create a new request. So this new request is going to be the one for actually I'll say generate. So I'll say generate JWT. So post. So this is going to be a post method, and then I'll say create. So right in here, I'll say that we have a body, and this body is going to be JSON. So I'll create this as JSON. So we're going to provide our email. So we created our user with the name of with an email of jerry@gmail.com. So in this case, what I'm going to do is to provide our email first. So it's going to be our email, which is going to be jerry@gmail. So it's going to be jerry@gmail.com. as well as our password. So our password is going to be equal to, so this will be password 123. So I'll provide the URL, which is going to be localhost. So it's going to be localhost 5000 slash, in this case, we're going to have both and then slash login. So we're going to try to create this. So I'm going to create this request. So when you send this, so you can't connect to the server. Let's try to see. Our server is actually not running, so I'll come and run python run server.py. So this is going to run our server. I'll try sending the request again. And now we have not found. So let's actually try to see what's happening here. So when you go to our code, I will have it located on our /login endpoint. So let's try to actually see this sent with the post method. Actually supposed to access it via the auth login. So let me actually try to check. So we go to our Swagger UI and go to our localhost 5000. So right here we have auth. So this is going to be /auth/login. So let me try sending the request again. So right now we see that our access token and our refresh token have been created. So right now we've been able to acquire our access and refresh token. Now the next thing we're going to do is to create that route that's going to help us to actually refresh our token when the token expires. So what I'll do is to go to our Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to open up VS Code and then I'll create that endpoint. So I actually never included this as part of our documentation, but I'm going to add it in a moment. So what I'm going to do, say at auth. So this is going to be auth namespace dot route. Then I'll call this route the refresh route. So this guy is going to help us to acquire a new access token in case our token has expired. So I'm just going to remove this and then I'll create a class. So I'll call this class refresh. So I'll just simply call it refresh. And it's also going to inherit from resource. So what I'm going to do is to define the method. So in this case, our method is going to be post method. So just say post and then we shall say self. So right here, what I'll do is to simply acquire that, because now we require to pass our refresh token in this request. So we're going to include this in our header so that we'll be able to access a new access token. So the first thing we're going to do is to get the identity of the currently logged in user. That means we shall have to protect this. So to protect our route, our protected endpoint, we're going to have to protect it with the JWT required decorator. So what I'll do is to first import it. I'll go to the top of our code, and then what I'll do is to actually go ahead and import. So I'll first do this so that I make this on multiple lines. So I'll go ahead and also import the JWT required decorator. So right after importing our decorator, I'll come right here and what I'll do is to basically decorate our method. So I'm going to decorate this method with a JWT required. And since we want a fresh JWT, a refresh token in this case, what we're going to do is to specify that refresh is equal to true. So what I've done is I've told Flask-JWT-Extended that what we require is to protect this endpoint and we shall only be able to access it when we have an access token. In this case, we're going to actually use our JWT, which is our refresh token. So after acquiring our refresh token, we're going to be able to get the identity of the user who this token belongs to. So we're going to do that by saying our current. Actually, we shall just say in this case, we used our username. So I'll just say username. And our username in this case is going to be, so I'll say our username is going to be get JWT identity. So I'm going to actually also import that from Flask-X. So I'll say this is going to be JWT identity. So I'll come and also import it at the top of our code. So I'll come right here and I'll also add it. So this is going to be get JWT identity. So what this function is going to do is going to help us to acquire the identity of the user who created this token. So when I go right here, when I say that our username is equal to get JWT identity, this will only be called when we have that specific route being protected with JWT required. So after accessing our username, what we shall do is to create a new token that has the same identity as that user. But before we do that, what I'm going to do is to actually first return. So what I'll just do is to return. So in this case, I'm just going to return a simple username, and then this username is going to be the username. So I'll just say our username. And right now, after doing this, I'm going to go ahead and save. So we're going to make a request to this endpoint. So I'll go back to my Insomnia, and what I'll do is to create that request. So I'll create a new request, and I'll call this to refresh. So I'll say refresh JWT, or actually say, let's just call it create new. So this is going to be create new JWT, and this is going to be via a post request. So you need to create this, and once you create this, then the next thing I'm going to do is to come and specify the URL. So our URL is going to be our local host. So it's going to be localhost. So this is going to be localhost 5000, and then it's going to be on /auth endpoint, and then we shall specify that this is going to be refresh. So right after doing this, I'm going to go ahead and provide our refresh token in our authentication authorization headers. So I'll just come to our generated JWT endpoint. I'll create the JWTs again. So I'm going to actually use the refresh token in this case. So I'll copy it. Right after copying it, I'll go to create a new JWT, and I'll go to our header section. So in our header section, since we're going to pass our JWT in our authorization header, I'll come and give the key as authorization. And then in this case, what we need is to specify that this is going to be bearer and then the JWT or the refresh token. So in this case, I'm going to pass in bearer and then the refresh token. So what I'll do is to send this request. And right now, we can see the user who this token belongs to, which is Jerry in this case. So I'm going to go back to our Insomnia, to our VS Code admin, and what we shall do is to create a token, a new token based on the identity that we have here. So what I'm going to do is to remove this, and what I'll do is to actually call our access token. So I'll say our access token is going to be equal to create access token. Then we are going to set the identity to the identity of that user who created this token. So I'm going to pass in the identity as our username. So now we're going to just return what we're going to do is to return a response containing the new access token. So I'll just come and say return, and this is going to return our access token. So I'll basically say it's going to be our access token, and then here we shall just actually pass in our access token, and we can even return an HTTP status code. So I'll say HTTP status. Okay, so basically what's going to happen is we're going to return an OK status code after creating our refresh token. So I'm going to try it again. When I go back to our Insomnia right here, I'm going to send this request again. Right now we can be able to access a new access token using our refresh token.